Welcome back to my channel. It is currently the last day of the year at 1:35 p.m. and I finished my last book of 2025 last night. So now I officially have read 151 books in 2025, and I have had 23 5-star books, and I'm going to talk about my top 15 books, question mark. We're gonna start with honorable mentions and then go, and this, I believe, is the ranking that I would have. I know that I've been seeing a lot of people doing the best of 2025 videos all in the month of December. I haven't watched any personally yet, but I am just like, I have this whole month of December to read and maybe find new favorites. So I don't know. I don't understand BookTube sometimes. But I'm going to go over my top 15. The first two are just honorable mentions. They're not actually like they should be, but they didn't quite make it. So this one is Dead of Winter by Darcy Coates. I think it's horror novel on Goodreads, but I would say this is more of a isolated thriller personally. But there are 8 strangers, 1 killer, nowhere left to run. This woman, Krista, goes on this Rocky Mountain retreat in the winter, and they get snowed into this cabin. They were supposed to go to the lodge, but they never made it to the lodge. They get snowed into a cabin. And there are 8 strangers, and then bodies start dropping. I really like Darcy Coates' contemporary stuff. I'm not really a big paranormal reader, and this is one of my favorites. I should do a ranking. The only thing is that I don't like any paranormal, any of her paranormal stuff that I've tried. I haven't tried them all, but I have read quite a few of them. I think I would, if I do a ranking of Darcy Coates, it would just be of her contemporary. And the other that was so close to making it to my favorite was This Girl's a Killer by Emma C. Wells. I read this back in February, I believe. But Cordelia Black is a serial killer. And she's the type of serial killer. If you've ever read or watched You by Caroline Kepnes, and you follow Joe, who's a stalker and a killer, and he's not a good guy, but you kind of root for him. Cordelia Black, I mean, she's not bad, but she kills people. But they had it coming. And it's not black or white. There's definitely some things going on in here. It's very a feminist feminism wins. Kinda, but Cordelia Black kills. These are in order, I think, as of a couple of hours ago. So we're just gonna call it good. This first one, I'm gonna be real with you for a second. I don't know if I had read this earlier in the year, or if it wasn't the last book that I read in 2025, I don't know if it would be on this list. I gave it 5 stars, But ask me again in 6 months when I've kind of sat with it. This is Nestlings by Nat Cassidy. Oh my God. It's like I read 2 different books. Because the first 160 pages of this book was perfection. You follow Annie and Reed, who won the apartment lottery. They basically get this free apartment in New York, and it's one of the most beloved historical buildings, and it almost seems too good to be true. But then Annie has their baby. Annie gives birth to this beautiful baby and gets paralyzed. And I think that the being paralyzed was supposed to be temporary because of something that happened during childbirth. But now Annie is she has postpartum, yeah, she has postpartum from having her baby, and she wants to be the best mom that she can be. And I've really found that books about being a mother, specifically horror novels about being a mother, those are some of my favorites, which is so weird to say. But I loved that chunk of it, getting to know about her postpartum, moving into this new house that's a little bit creepy. This is definitely all vibes, all atmosphere. Nat Cassidy nailed it with the atmosphere, with the postpartum, with the wanting to be the best mother that you could be. And that part was perfection. Then he dropped a bomb on us in part 4. And if you've read this, then you know. But I can't tell you what the bomb is that Nat Cassidy dropped without spoiling a major part of this book. And I can't spoil it. If you want to know, comment down below and I will talk to you in the comments. But that is not my favorite thing in horror novels. And I think Nat Cassidy, yes, he threw a bomb in there that I didn't love, but he worked it into the storyline so well that I didn't hate it. And that's gonna be the best you're gonna get with that specific thing. There's a certain monster or creature in this book that I wasn't expecting. And I typically don't like that in my books. However, Nat Cassidy made it work. She is in her own head and she wants to be the best mom possible, but she's also suffering from postpartum and she's recently paralyzed from giving birth. So she has a triple whammy going on in her brain, and following from her perspective was amazing, because there are many books where you follow a main character into madness or you follow their descent and you're just oh, well, she's clearly crazy, or it's all delulu, it's delusional in her mind. I never once thought that. And you might be thinking, well, Alita isn't that bad. But no, if I could ride the wave with Nat Cassidy and with Annie and think that, oh my God, the walls are moving, or, oh my God, the gargoyles have moved. Or, oh my God, do you hear that crying in the back of your mind? Oh, but the baby's asleep. No, no, no. It's not in her head. Like, if you can make me think that she is not cray-cray, but everything that she's thinking is, like, so far-fetched or just so, like, bizarre, then you, my friend, have just cemented yourself as a new favorite author. And you, my friend, have just, like, blown my mind. Our next one, we're gonna move on from horror. Horror and thriller is all we've had so far, so let's put a romance on here. I read a diverse range of books, so sometimes we'll zig, sometimes we'll zag, sometimes we'll, you just won't know. Mariana Zapata is the queen of slow burn romances, and I have made it a goal of mine, apparently, to read a Mariana Zapata every year for the past 2 years. So let's do it again in 2026, Alita. This is All Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata. The thing about Mariana Zapata's books are, yes, it's a very, 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 like, snail speed, slow romance. There is that romance at the core of this. But more than that, you follow Aurora, who is trying to find herself, who is trying to be the best human that she can be. And so you follow Aurora, who is staying at this person's house, like an Airbnb type thing. And she gets there in the middle of the night, and this very big guy, like muscular man, comes out, and he's like, "Get out of my house!" And she's like, "No, I'm renting the upstairs apartment in the garage." And he's like, "No, you're not. I'm gonna get my gun." That's how they first meet. Then Rhodes' son runs downstairs, and he's like, no, 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 she's here to rent the apartment. I made this with her, and, you know, so it was very tense. And so things between Rhodes and Aurora are very, very, like, tense. And I wouldn't say that they're enemies, but he's definitely grumpy, and she's all sunshine. And she is investigating what happened to her mom. Her mom went missing 15 years before this, I believe, 10 or 15 years. And she's going on all the hiking trails around there because that's what her mom used to do. So she wants to kind of connect with her mom. And she was going to stay for, I think, 2 months. And then, so during those 2 months, you know, her, Aurora and Rhodes start talking more, and, I mean, literally bickering all the time, but the banter and the chemistry that came off these pages, like, it's very slow burn. They don't, I don't know if you know this about Mariana Zapata, but, oof, I loved the angst. And then we're going back to horror. This is Foe by Ian Reid. Honestly, Ian Reid, he has cemented his place in my mind that if I want a slow burn horror novel, I'm going to Ian Reid. If I want someone to mess with my mind, to tell me that I'm batshit, or to make me feel batshit, then Ian Reid. He is my man. So in Foe, nothing happens in this book. Like, honestly, there is not a single thing that happens. Nothing happens. So if you have to have a big plot, if you have to have just like boom, 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 this is not for you. But if you're like me and you just want all vibes, you want all atmosphere, Foe is your book. So you follow Junior and Hen. They're a married couple who live out in this farm. They're very isolated from the world, and that's kind of how they like it. But you're inside Junior's mind, and Junior is having some very weird thoughts. Like, very weird thoughts. But it's all internal. Him and Hen never verbalize what they're going through until this man from NASA, but not NASA, but NASA, comes to their farm. And he says, well, Junior, it looks like you might win the lottery. And this lottery is going up to space for 2 years, I believe. Don't worry, we'll make sure Hen is okay without you. And then this man leaves. And him and Hen don't talk about it at all. They're just like, well, you might be going to space, but they never talk about it. And it's just this intense anxiety, this intense dread that you feel because you want this marriage to work out. You want Junior and Hen to be happy again, but they never really, I don't even know if they were ever really happy or if they became happy at the end. I have no idea because, like I said, it's very weird. Nothing happens. Nothing. It's just internally Junior the entire time until 2 years later when the guy from NASA comes back. He says, Junior, you have won this lottery. And they still don't talk about it. And then things just get weird. If that's not weird enough. So if you just want this immense sense of dread, like you gotta look over your own shoulder and you're just have anxiety just to have anxiety because everything could go wrong, but is it? I don't know. And if you kind of want to be a little like confused, Foe by Ian Reid. Honestly, just anything by Ian Reid. But this was wonderful. Okay, then we have Midnight is the Darkest Hour by Ashley Winstead. Ashley Winstead is quickly becoming my girl. Like, I love her. This follows Ruth and Everett. And you have two timelines. So you have the timeline that happened 19 years ago, and you have the timeline of now. So 19 years ago, Ruth and Everett became friends. Some would even say that, like, they wanted to be more. But they became friends when they were teenagers. And at this time, in this small town, Peach Blossom, Bottom Springs, Louisiana, which is a highly religious town, almost like a cult following as a town. But here, during this time in Bottom Springs, there's a serial killer on the loose. And you are led to believe something certain about that serial killer until near the end, like the twist, which honestly got me, okay? The twist got me in here. And it was more of a like, gotcha. And it was, I lived and breathed and loved this book so much because it has serial killer, it has cult, it has a very religious undertone, and at the core of it, it has like a friendship, like such a big-hearted friendship. And I really, really loved Ruth. Then we have Sometimes I Lie by Alice Sweeney. I really can't tell you much about this. It's a thriller in which you follow this woman named Amber Reynolds, who is in a coma, and she lies a lot. So you have the chapters of her being in a coma where her family is in the hospital room with her, and they're talking. Sometimes they're talking to her, sometimes they're talking about her, sometimes they're, just like whispering things that she can't know. And they all have secrets. I loved those chapters. Then you got like the slower chapters, which were actually what led up to her being in a coma. And I was so drenched in this mystery that even though it was slow at times, I didn't care. It was wonderful. And then, the chapters, so it goes then, which is leading up to the coma, and then now, which is her in a coma and listening to everyone around her, including her family, the doctors, different police investigators, things like that. So you're getting bits and pieces of information from like leading up to and while she's in a coma. And I didn't trust anyone, but oh my God, this Amber might have my heart. We have 8 more. But, we had some serious and tone books. So let's go back to romance. This is the third best romance I read. Second best, uplifting romance that I've read. This is First Time Caller by B.K. Borison, and everyone has been hyping this up, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna hate this book. It's been on BookTube and BookTok too much. I'm not gonna like it. I'm sorry that I thought that I said that. This follows Lucy, who is a hopeless romantic. She wants that fairy tale love, and her daughter has called the radio show called Heartstrings, Baltimore's romance hotline. So her daughter called them and was like, yeah, my mom still believes in all that and all, I don't know, that kind of thing. And Aiden, was the radio show host. So they were talking, and then Lucy finds out. She's like, wait, that's my daughter's voice. So she went over and grabbed the phone. She's like, I gotta go. And then Aiden's stopping her. And they start conversing. And then the radio show, skyrockets. They got more listeners, and it was just the best episode of that show in a long time. So they call, the radio show producer calls Lucy and it's like, hey, can you come do a couple shows with Aiden? Because we like the banter that you guys had. And she ultimately chooses to go, but then they're like, we should have you go on a couple dates and the viewers can choose who you continue to date. But as Aiden and Lucy are in the radio booth, they fall in love with each other. And like Aiden is complete opposite of her. Like she wants all the grand gestures and the romance and the storybook ending, and Aiden doesn't believe in any of that crap. He's like, no, it's all just made up gibberish, and love isn't real, romance is dead. And ultimately together they like find each other. The fan family in here is so cute. And honestly, seeing Aiden change from a ew, gross, love is not real, nobody deserves grand gestures, romance is for the weak, to what he became was so heartwarming, and I might have cried. I definitely cried at the end of this one, and it was just so cute. Then I have Near the Bone by Christina Henry. This is another horror novel, and it's the first one by Christina Henry that I've actually really enjoyed. This is like an isolated horror, so this woman is in this cabin. Okay, I can't tell you too much. All I can say is that Maddie finds a mutilated fox in the woods, and that's kind of what starts this. And then there are people that are trying to get into the cabin because they saw her run away. And so they know that she's there, but she doesn't want William to get angry. And now she's also thinking that they're not alone on the mountain, besides these random hikers that are there, but because someone mutilated a fox, that must mean that there's some kind of other monster there. And this was so... Spoiler. So adored this book. Maddie is a survivor in so many ways. Sorry that I had to spoil that one, but that one stayed in my heart for so long. So let's go to the next one. The next one is Dearest by Jackie Walters. Like I said, I've learned this year that I love horror novels that have to do with motherhood and descending into madness. So I'm pretty sure she had postpartum after she gave birth. Although I think her kid is a little... No, Iris. Oh, okay. Yeah. Iris was born and she's a few weeks old, and she just keeps having these thoughts that are clearly not true. Like, she says that she left a cabinet open, but it was closed, you know, and I'm like, oh, you probably just forgot that you closed it. You know, it's something small like that. But she's going crazy. Like, she's descending into motherhood, into postpartum, into this really negative headspace. And I loved that. Her name is Flora. I'm sorry I didn't tell you that. I forgot. Because it doesn't matter. But she calls her a strange mom. Like, she had a very vital. She had a very negative childhood. So she hasn't talked to her mom in many years. She finally called her mom and was like, hey, can you help me with the baby? Because her husband is deployed. And mom comes and helps her. But does she really help her? Or is she adding to the madness? I have 5 because there's one that I don't have. Okay, I'm going to talk about this one. And then the last 4 are favorites of all time. Like, there's nothing you can do to change my mind. But number 5 is Night Bitch by Rachel Yoder. I don't own this yet. I want to eventually, but I don't. This, again, is another motherhood type of horror story where the mom in this is losing her identity as a person and just becoming mama. Just mother. Just mom! That's it. She is nothing else to the world, but to that baby, she is mom! Although the baby doesn't talk yet, because they're a baby. But she's losing her identity, and as she's descending into this motherhood void, she starts turning into a dog. Nothing happens in this book either. So, if you need a lot of plot, don't read this. Because nothing happens except for her descent into madness. Okay, these are my last 4, and they are favorites of all times. This is The Godparent Trap by Rachel Van Dyken. Holy smokes. This was the year of motherhood in my novels. Like, all of my main characters. I mean, seriously, most of the books I read and loved had something to do with motherhood. So, in The Godparent Trap, you follow Kobe and Rip. Kobe's best friends died in a car accident. Those best friends were Rip's sister and his brother-in-law. They die at the very beginning of this book. And they left 2 children to Kobe and Rip, but they have to be together, even though they're not together. They're not. They went on one hilariously bad date. And it was so awful. They kind of don't like each other anymore, but they're forced together to co-parent these children that no longer have parents because their parents died. I have not cried so hard on one page and then busted out laughing on the next like some kind of psychopath ever. Like, this is such a wholesome, laugh out loud funny, but drench your face in tears read that everyone should read it. And I don't know, maybe it's because of my history with, maybe it's because of my history with foster parenting that this hit me so close to home. But this was just perfection. Like, seriously. If you want a roller coaster of emotions, if you want to be heartbroken because they're both going through grief, if you want to be angry because Kobe left the milk out and made it spoil because nobody put it away. If you want to laugh out loud because of some of the fights that they have reminded me of like my real life marriage. And if you just want everything, then read The Godparent. Okay, and then number 3. Before I show you my third pick, I do not recommend this book to anyone. This is a heartbreaking book. This is disturbing. This is gritty. This is disgusting. So in my number 3 slot is Still Bleeding by Jennifer Hartman. Holy snaky. You follow Cora, who stays out too late drinking. She calls everybody in the wedding party because her sister is getting married tomorrow. She stayed out too late. She's drunk. She needs a ride home. Nobody answers the phone. So she finally calls Dean, who is the the groom to be. And she wakes him up, but he's like, yeah, what do you need? They strongly dislike each other. And he's like, fine. So he went to pick her up from the bar, where this guy was not leaving Cora alone. And when Dean comes to pick her up, this man asks him, are y'all together? And he's like, F no. No. Because they hate each other. They despise each other. That man follows them and kidnaps them together. And he forces them into this basement where he then forces them to do things to each other, to him. It's so gruesome. I hope you can't hear that, but if you do, then that's just my kids, so too bad. It's so gruesome. It's so violent. It's so vile. It's sickening. It's beyond sickening, but for lack of a better term, it's sickening. It's horrifying. What happens in that basement. And I'm not going to tell you anything else. I'm telling you, don't read this book. It's horrible. But it did make my favorites. So I have 2 left, and depending on the day, they might be interchangeable for my number 1 slot. But I have Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. This was a sci-fi horror classic. So you follow 2 timelines with Dana. First, Dana is turning 28 in the present day timeline, which is in 1979. And on her birthday, she gets transported to the 1820s in the Deep South, where she would be a slave because she's a black woman. And also, women were seen as property in the 1800s. And then she saves a kid from drowning. And then she's pulled back to 1979 on her birthday. And she was only gone for a couple seconds, according to her husband. But according to her, she was gone for a couple of hours. And that starts this trip of her just going back and forth but not really being able to control it. And sometimes she'd be gone for 20 years in the 1800s, but it's only been like 1 year in real time. And I loved this book. It's a very confusing, and it definitely has an ambiguous ending. So if that's something you're okay with, then definitely read any of the books that I recommend. Almost any, but definitely this one. It does not wrap everything up in a pretty little bow, but I was riveted by the atmosphere and by like being in the Deep South. It was gross. It was horrible because of the way that people were treated. And I hated it, but I really enjoyed this book. And the last one is Any Man by Amber Tamblyn. But don't read this one either. Um, this has so many different perspectives, but basically, this follows this woman rapist who has a very particular way of selecting her victims. And this made my heart so heavy, made my chest so heavy, because it's very a feminist tell of it talks a lot about how victims can be males, but how males don't feel comfortable ever reporting. And more than that, it kind of twists how, like, the Me Too movement, many women are always blamed for their assault, and this puts a spin on that, like, well, if you didn't wear that top or whatever, you know, all that BS. And this angered me. That I had all the feelings in this book. It enraged me, but it's the truth in a lot of ways. Even though it's a work of fiction, it got under my skin. It enraged me, and I was just like, oh my God. Like, I just wanted to grab this book and, like, throw it and scream. I didn't. Well, maybe I did. I'm not going to tell you. But don't read this book. Yeah, don't read it. But it's so good. So I feel like I just went through my entire reading year. It's 50 minutes of footage that I have to edit now. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to me if you're new around here. Also, let me know in the comments below what your favorite book or books of the year are this year. Or in 2025, because you'll be seeing this in 2026.